Welcome to the Final Bell, where we relive the epic battles that defined boxing's greatest eras. Today, we're diving into every single title fight in the explosive career of Mike Tyson, the ferocious Iron Mike who dominated the heavyweight division like no other. From his meteoric rise as the youngest champ to the brutal showdowns that tested his legacy, we'll walk you through when and where these iconic fights went down. Get ready for a ringside seat to the moments that crowned Tyson a legend. November 22nd, 1986, fight number 28. Mike Tyson steps into the ring at the Las Vegas Hilton to challenge Trevor Berbick for the WBC heavyweight title. At just 20 years and 4 months old, Tyson aims to become the youngest heavyweight champion in history, surpassing Floyd Patterson's record. Berbick, a seasoned Jamaican-born fighter, holds a 31-4-1 record with 23 knockouts. He secured the WBC title earlier that year by defeating Pinklon Thomas. Notably, Berbick is the only boxer to have faced Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, and now Mike Tyson. From the opening bell, Tyson asserts dominance. He relentlessly pressures Berbick, landing powerful combinations. In the second round, Tyson delivers a right to the body, followed by a left hook to the head, sending Berbick to the canvas. Berbick attempts to rise but collapses multiple times, prompting referee Mills Lane to stop the fight at 2:35 of round 2. Result: TKO, round 2. With this victory, Tyson becomes the youngest heavyweight champion ever, a record that still stands. This fight marks the beginning of Tyson's reign of dominance in the heavyweight division. After an astonishing 28 fights in less than 2 years, a pace almost unheard of in modern boxing, Mike Tyson entered 1987, not as a rising contender, but as the reigning WBC heavyweight champion. Now, the hunted, not the hunter, Tyson's schedule slowed. Just 4 fights followed in 1987, but each one carried the weight of expectation. Every opponent was now a threat to the throne. The knockout machine was about to show he could defend his crown just as viciously as he chased it. March 7th, 1987, fight number 29. Mike Tyson returned to the ring at the Las Vegas Hilton, defending his WBC heavyweight title against James Bone Crusher Smith in a unification bout. Just over 2 years into his professional career, Tyson was already the youngest heavyweight champion in history. Now, he looked to add the WBA belt to his growing collection. Smith, a 33-year-old veteran, had shocked the boxing world 3 months earlier by knocking out Tim Witherspoon in the first round to win the WBA title. Known for his raw power and experience, Smith was viewed as one of Tyson's most dangerous opponents to date. But once the fight began, it turned into a frustrating affair. Tyson pressed forward throughout, looking to unleash his trademark combinations. Smith, however, relied heavily on clinching and holding, repeatedly tying Tyson up to smother the action. Referee Mills Lane deducted points from Smith in rounds 2 and 8 for excessive holding. Despite the lack of fireworks, Tyson was in full control. He landed 191 punches to Smith's 51 and dictated the pace from start to finish. After 12 rounds, Tyson was awarded a unanimous decision with wide scores of 120 to 106 and 119 to 107 twice. With the win, Tyson unified the WBC and WBA heavyweight titles, a major milestone in his quest to become the undisputed champion of the world. May 30th, 1987, fight number 30. Mike Tyson stepped into the ring at the Las Vegas Hilton, defending his WBC and WBA heavyweight championships against former world champion Pinklon Thomas. At just 20 years old, Tyson was already a 2-belt title holder, and the boxing world was watching closely as he continued his meteoric rise toward undisputed status. Thomas, a tall and durable heavyweight with a strong jab and notable toughness, brought a 29-1-1 record into the bout. He had held the WBC title from 1984 to 1986, making one successful defense before losing the belt to Trevor Berbick, the same Berbick Tyson had demolished in 2 rounds just 6 months earlier. Thomas had never been stopped in his professional career, and many believed he would provide a real gauge of Tyson's ability to handle experienced, well-conditioned opponents. Coming into the fight, there was talk that Thomas had rediscovered his form in training, and was laser-focused on regaining a version of the heavyweight crown. He had switched trainers to the legendary Angelo Dundee, the man who guided Muhammad Ali through his iconic career. and was determined to re-establish himself at the top of the division. But standing across from him was a 20-year-old force of nature who hadn't just been beating opponents. He'd been annihilating them. From the opening bell, Tyson brought immediate pressure. He slipped Thomas's jab and drove home short, thudding shots to the body. His signature head movement made him a difficult target, and his combinations landed with terrifying speed and precision. Thomas tried to establish range with his jab and looked to tie Tyson up in the clinch, but the younger man was relentless, constantly cutting off the ring and forcing exchanges at close quarters. To Thomas's credit, he absorbed significant punishment through the early rounds. He kept his composure and showed flashes of his slick boxing ability, but it was clear the tide was against him. Tyson's power was taking its toll, and the former champ was slowly being broken down. Then came round 6. Tyson burst forward with sudden fury. He cornered Thomas near the ropes and unleashed a vicious 15-punch combination. A savage mix of hooks, uppercuts, and crosses, thrown at blinding speed. Thomas staggered, reeled, and finally crashed to the canvas. It was a spectacular assault, one of the most devastating single offensive sequences in Tyson's career. Thomas bravely tried to rise, but the damage was done. Referee Carlos Padilla didn't hesitate. He waved it off at exactly 2 minutes of the 6th round. Thomas lay on the canvas, eyes glazed, as the crowd erupted in appreciation of what they had just witnessed. Mike Tyson had done it again. It was his 27th knockout in just 30 professional fights. The win wasn't just another defense, it was a statement. Tyson hadn't just beaten a former champion with a chin of granite. He had broken him down, then finished him in spectacular fashion. The stoppage marked the first time Thomas had ever been knocked out, and it reinforced the growing sense that Tyson wasn't just the best heavyweight in the world. He might be one of the most destructive ever. By the end of the night, there was no doubt. Tyson was now marching into the summer of 1987 as the dominant force in boxing, closing in on the 3rd piece of the heavyweight crown. The WBC and WBA belts were secure. Only one remained, and Mike Tyson looked utterly unstoppable. August 1st, 1987, fight number 31. Just 2 months after his brutal 6th round stoppage of Pinklon Thomas, Mike Tyson stepped into the ring once again, this time with history on the line. The opponent, unbeaten IBF heavyweight champion Tony Tucker. The venue, the Las Vegas Hilton. The stakes, all 3 major belts, the WBC, WBA, and IBF. For the first time since the days of Muhammad Ali, the heavyweight division would crown an undisputed champion. Tony Tucker was no ordinary challenger. At 6 feet 5 inches with a sharp jab, fast hands, and an undefeated record of 34-0, he was confident and fully aware of what was at stake. Just 3 months earlier, Tucker had claimed the vacant IBF title by stopping James "Buster" Douglas in the 10th round. Now, he was aiming to do what no man had even come close to doing: defeat Mike Tyson. Tyson, 21 years old and already holding the WBC and WBA belts, entered the fight with a perfect 30-0 record and 27 knockouts. He was the most feared man in the sport, a ferocious blend of speed, power, and aggression. But with the pressure of unifying the division on his shoulders, this would be his most significant challenge yet. The fight began with both fighters feeling each other out. Tyson pressed forward with his trademark aggression and combinations to the body. From the 2nd round onward, he settled into a rhythm, slipping punches, closing the distance, and landing heavy hooks to the head and ribs. Tucker boxed well early, using his height and reach advantage to frustrate Tyson at times. But as the rounds wore on, Tyson's pressure began to break through. The challenger started holding more, clinching whenever Tyson got close. And though he showed impressive toughness, he simply couldn't match Tyson's work rate or power. By the championship rounds, the difference in output was clear. Tyson had taken control of the fight. He continued to throw combinations and bursts, forcing Tucker to fight off the back foot. Though Tucker remained upright, he wasn't doing enough to win rounds, and he was gradually being outworked by the younger, hungrier champion. After 12 hard-fought rounds, the judges returned a unanimous decision: 119 to 111, 118 to 113, 116 to 112, all in favor of Tyson. It was only the 4th time Tyson had gone the distance in his career, but the victory was no less significant. With the win, Mike Tyson became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, unifying the WBC, WBA, and IBF titles. At just 21 years old, he was the youngest to ever achieve that feat in the heavyweight division, a record that still stands to this day. He had faced adversity, adjusted, and outpointed a skilled, undefeated opponent over 12 rounds. This wasn't just about knockouts anymore, it was about proving he could win in every way possible. Tyson stood at the top of the mountain, undisputed, unmatched, and still only just getting started. October 16th, 1987, fight number 32. 7 weeks after becoming the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Mike Tyson made the first defense of his unified title. His opponent was the undefeated Olympic gold medalist, Tyrell Biggs, a man who had long believed he was destined to beat Tyson. Biggs had won gold in the super heavyweight division at the 1984 Olympics and turned professional with high expectations. Tall, athletic, and technically sound, he had racked up a 15-0 record with 10 knockouts. But it wasn't just his record that brought intrigue, it was the backstory. Biggs had been vocal, even dismissive about Tyson for years. In fact, during their time on the Olympic team, the two had a frosty relationship, with Biggs reportedly mocking Tyson's style and doubting his future in the sport. Now, in 1987, their paths finally crossed in Atlantic City, with all the heavyweight marbles on the line. From the opening bell, it was clear Tyson had taken Biggs' past comments personally. Biggs started well, boxing from range behind a flicking jab, trying to stay on his toes and avoid Tyson's pressure. For a couple of rounds, he did exactly what he said he would, frustrate the champion, but Tyson was patient. He absorbed the movement, slipped the jab, and began chipping away with heavy body shots. Biggs' rhythm started to break, the jab slowed, the footwork dulled. Tyson had found his range, and Biggs began to feel the weight of every thudding combination. In the 5th round, Tyson opened up with a brutal left hook that snapped Biggs' head back. The crowd roared as the champion began stalking him relentlessly. Biggs tried to hold, tried to move, but there was nowhere to hide. By the 7th round, Tyson had broken him down completely. After battering Biggs into the ropes with a crushing combination, he landed another monstrous left hook that sent Biggs to the canvas. Bloodied and overwhelmed, Biggs rose to his feet, but Tyson swarmed again. Moments later, a final flurry prompted the referee to step in and wave it off. Tyson won by 7th round TKO, his 28th knockout in 32 fights. And in doing so, he delivered a brutal message. This was personal, and this was punishment. The aftermath was telling. Biggs' face was battered, his undefeated record gone, and his career would never truly recover. For Tyson, it was another emphatic chapter in his reign of destruction. A champion defending his crown with cold, calculated fury. He didn't just beat Biggs, he broke him. And the Tyson juggernaut rolled on. After a relentless rise through the heavyweight division, Mike Tyson entered 1988 as the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, holding the WBC, WBA, and IBF titles. Since his professional debut in March 1985, Tyson had fought an astonishing 32 times, crushing contenders, dismantling champions, and unifying the division with a level of dominance rarely seen in boxing history. Now, nearly 3 years into his pro career, Tyson's schedule finally began to slow. In 1988, he would step into the ring just 3 times. But what the year lacked in quantity, it made up for in high-stakes drama and elite opposition. Tyson was no longer the fearsome contender chasing the throne. He was the throne, the man every heavyweight was gunning for. Each opponent came in looking to shock the world, but Tyson remained a step ahead, faster, stronger, and more dangerous than ever. The pace may have eased, but the intensity never dropped. 1988 would prove that even as the hunted, Tyson was still the most feared man in boxing. Fight 33, January 22nd, 1988. Versus Larry Holmes. Mike Tyson's first fight of 1988 was steeped in history. Standing across from him was none other than Larry Holmes, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Holmes had reigned as WBC and later IBF heavyweight champion for nearly a decade, making 20 successful title defenses and compiling an incredible 48-0 record before suffering his first defeat to Michael Spinks in 1985. He was just one win away from tying Rocky Marciano's legendary 49-0 record. But by the time Holmes stepped into the ring with Tyson, he hadn't fought in almost 2 years. His last appearance came on April 19, 1986, in a second consecutive loss to Spinks. And his most recent victory was way back in May 1985. Now 38 years old, Holmes was coaxed out of retirement with the chance to reclaim the heavyweight crown and add one final chapter to his storied career. Tyson, 21 years old and in his prime, entered the ring as the undisputed champion, looking to make a statement against a living legend. From the opening bell, Tyson was aggressive, fast, and ferocious. Holmes tried to use his jab and movement to keep Tyson at bay, but the champion's pressure was unrelenting. In round 4, Tyson exploded with a brutal combination. A thunderous right hand sent Holmes crashing to the canvas. The referee waved it off, giving Tyson the TKO victory in round 4. It was the only time in Larry Holmes' illustrious 75-fight career that he was stopped. Tyson had not only defended his title, he had emphatically dispatched one of the greatest champions in boxing history. Fight 34, March 21st, 1988, versus Tony Tubbs. On March 21st, 1988, Mike Tyson stepped into the ring for the 34th fight of his career, defending his undisputed heavyweight championship in Tokyo, Japan, against former WBA world champion Tony Tubbs. Tubbs entered the bout with a 24-1 record and a strong pedigree. He had captured the WBA heavyweight title in 1985 by outboxing Greg Page and was widely regarded as one of the most technically gifted heavyweights of the era. With fast hands, fluid footwork, and solid defensive skills, Tubbs had the kind of style that some believed could trouble Tyson. However, his career had been inconsistent. He lost the title to Tim Witherspoon in 1986 and had since battled questions about his focus and conditioning. Coming into the Tyson fight, Tubbs was in the midst of disputes with his training team and weighed in at 238.5 pounds, noticeably heavier than his best fighting shape. Despite those concerns, Tubbs started the fight confidently. He landed quick jabs and combinations, using his speed and ring IQ to keep Tyson off balance early. But Tyson remained patient, applying steady pressure and slowly cutting down the ring. Then, late in round 2, Tyson landed a thunderous left hook to the head that staggered Tubbs. The challenger wobbled backward and collapsed to the canvas. Though he tried to rise, it was clear he was in no condition to continue. The referee stepped in and waved off the fight, giving Tyson the win by second-round TKO. It was Tyson's 30th knockout in 34 fights, and yet another emphatic display of his devastating power and precision. Tubbs, a former world champion and skilled contender, had brought experience into the ring. But, like so many before him, he couldn't withstand Tyson's firepower. Fight 35, June 27, 1988, versus Michael Spinks. By mid-1988, Mike Tyson was already a household name. Just over 3 years removed from his professional debut, he had torn through the heavyweight division with frightening speed and power, unifying the WBA, WBC, and IBF titles to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. With an unbeaten record of 34-0, including 30 knockouts, Tyson had beaten every man put in front of him, often with ease. But one name still lingered in the background: Michael Spinks. Spinks was no ordinary contender. He was an Olympic gold medalist, a former undisputed light heavyweight champion, who had made history in 1985 by moving up in weight and handing Larry Holmes his first career defeat, and then doing it again in a rematch. Holmes had been just one win away from tying Rocky Marciano's perfect 49-0 record when Spinks upset him. That made Spinks the lineal heavyweight champion, the man who beat the man. And for many boxing purists, that lineage still mattered, even as Tyson collected all the sanctioning body belts. But Spinks had taken a different route. Instead of facing the best heavyweights in the rankings, he had chosen more lucrative fights, including a high-profile bout with Jerry Cooney, which he won impressively via a 5th-round knockout. However, by refusing to face IBF mandatory challenger Tony Tucker, Spinks was stripped of that belt, a title that Tyson would later pick up when he beat Tucker in 1987 to unify the division. Despite this, Spinks remained undefeated and unbowed. His supporters argued that he had never been beaten, and therefore, his claim to the championship, the true championship, still held weight. For nearly 2 years, the fight between Tyson and Spinks was talked about as the ultimate showdown. Tyson had destroyed everyone in his path, defending his titles against top contenders like Bone Crusher Smith, Pinklon Thomas, Tyrell Biggs, Larry Holmes, and Tony Tubbs. Spinks had fought only twice since 1986, but both wins had been decisive. Public pressure mounted. The media framed it as the fight to determine once and for all who the real heavyweight king was. Negotiations were complicated by television networks, promoters, and egos. Tyson was aligned with Don King and HBO, while Spinks was backed by Butch Lewis and Showtime. But eventually, money talked. The bout was set for June 27, 1988, at Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The financial stakes were enormous. It was the richest fight in boxing history at the time, generating an estimated $70 million. Tyson would earn around $20 million, while Spinks was guaranteed $13.5 million. The event attracted A-list celebrities, sports legends, and media from around the world. The fight was billed fittingly as once and for all. Inside the ring, the build-up quickly gave way to brutality. The opening bell rang, and Tyson wasted no time. He charged out with his signature aggression, bobbing and weaving, looking to close the distance. Spinks, visibly tense and trying to remain composed, attempted to clinch and buy time. But it was no use. Tyson slipped a jab and uncorked a crushing overhand right, arguably one of the most perfect punches he ever landed. It detonated on Spinks' jaw and sent him flat on his back. His head bounced slightly off the canvas. He tried to move, but couldn't beat the count. Referee Frank Cappuccino reached 10. The fight lasted just 91 seconds. The long-awaited super fight was over in less than 2 minutes. The result was not just another knockout for Tyson. It was a definitive and emphatic answer to all lingering questions. Michael Spinks was not just beaten, he was obliterated. Tyson had now unified all 3 major belts and defeated the lineal champion. There was no dispute, no debate. He was the one true heavyweight king. Following, arguably, the most significant victories of his career in 1988, Mike Tyson entered 1989 as the undisputed heavyweight king. But with his dominance firmly established, Tyson's schedule slowed, featuring just 2 fights that year, as the boxing world watched and waited for the next challenger brave enough to face the baddest man on the planet. Fight 36, February 25, 1989, versus Frank Bruno. After a dominant 1988 campaign, Mike Tyson returned to the ring on February 25, 1989, to defend his undisputed heavyweight titles against Britain's Frank Bruno at the Las Vegas Hilton. This bout was highly anticipated, having been postponed multiple times due to Tyson's personal and professional challenges, including a divorce, legal disputes, and changes in his training team. The fight commenced explosively, with Tyson knocking Bruno down just 14 seconds into the first round with a right hook. However, Bruno showcased resilience, rising quickly and later in the round, landing a combination, a right hand followed by a left hook, that momentarily staggered Tyson, marking the first time in his professional career that he appeared visibly shaken. Despite Bruno's efforts, Tyson regained control in the subsequent rounds, applying relentless pressure. In the 5th round, Tyson unleashed a series of powerful punches, culminating in a right uppercut and a left hook that left Bruno defenseless against the ropes. Referee Richard Steele intervened, stopping the fight at 2:55 of the 5th round, awarding Tyson a technical knockout victory. This victory improved Tyson's record to 36-0, with 32 knockouts, and reaffirmed his status as the undisputed heavyweight champion. Bruno, despite the loss, earned respect for his tenacity and would later achieve his own championship success. Fight 37, July 21, 1989, versus Carl Williams. On July 21, 1989, Mike Tyson defended his undisputed heavyweight titles against Carl "The Truth" Williams at the Convention Center in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Tyson entered the bout with a perfect 36-0 record, including 32 knockouts, and was widely regarded as the most formidable force in boxing. Williams, standing at 6 feet 4 inches with an 85-inch reach, was the IBF's #1 contender and known for his sharp left jab. He had previously challenged Larry Holmes for the IBF title in 1985, narrowly losing by unanimous decision, and had since secured 5 consecutive victories to re-establish himself as a top contender. From the opening bell, Tyson applied relentless pressure, slipping Williams' jabs and closing the distance. Approximately 76 seconds into the first round, Tyson countered a Williams jab with a devastating left hook to the jaw, sending Williams crashing to the canvas. Williams managed to rise at the count of 8, but appeared unsteady. Referee Randy Newman assessed Williams' condition, and observing a lack of responsiveness and clear signs of disorientation, decided to stop the fight at 1:33 of the first round, awarding Tyson a technical knockout victory. The abrupt stoppage sparked controversy, with Williams and his camp protesting that he was fit to continue. However, Newman defended his decision, citing Williams's glazed expression and inability to respond coherently as justification for halting the bout to ensure the fighter's safety. This victory marked Tyson's 37th consecutive win and 33rd knockout, further solidifying his dominance in the heavyweight division. Unbeknownst to many at the time, this bout would be Tyson's final successful title defense before his shocking defeat to James "Buster" Douglas in February 1990, a loss that ended his reign as the undisputed heavyweight champion. As 1989 drew to a close, fans couldn't help but notice a shift. After years of ferocious activity, fighting nearly every month during his meteoric rise, Mike Tyson had stepped into the ring just twice all year. While both performances were dominant, questions began to surface. Why the slowdown? Some pointed to Tyson's increasing involvement outside the ring. His celebrity status had skyrocketed. He was now a global icon, appearing in commercials, magazine covers, and red carpet events. Others suggested that distractions in his personal life, including a deteriorating relationship with manager Bill Caton and the growing influence of promoter Don King, were beginning to impact his focus and scheduling. Behind the scenes, Tyson's once tightly controlled training regime was beginning to loosen. Kevin Rooney, the trainer who helped mold Tyson into a relentless force, had been dismissed the previous year, leaving a noticeable void in both discipline and technical sharpness. While Tyson was still winning, and winning big, the slowdown in 1989 marked the beginning of a new era. No longer the hungry contender, fighting monthly, Tyson was now a champion juggling fame, pressure, and the early signs of turbulence behind the throne. The storm clouds were gathering, and 1990 would bring one of the most shocking upsets in boxing history. After 4 dominant years and 37 straight victories, Mike Tyson entered 1990 as the undefeated, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. With all 3 major titles around his waist and a reputation for ruthless knockouts, Tyson looked untouchable. But 1990 would become a defining chapter in his career, a year that delivered both devastation and disbelief. Across 3 fights, Tyson's aura of invincibility would be questioned, his legacy shaken, and the boxing world stunned. The most feared man in boxing was about to face his greatest test yet. Fight 38, 11 February 1990 versus James "Buster" Douglas. In a bout that stunned the sporting world, Mike Tyson was stopped in the 10th round by James "Buster" Douglas at the Tokyo Dome in Japan, suffering the first defeat of his professional career and losing his WBC, WBA, and IBF heavyweight titles. The fight has since become etched in history as arguably the greatest upset the sport has ever seen. Tyson came into the fight with a perfect record of 37-0, including 33 knockouts. He had looked virtually untouchable since becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in history, demolishing opponents with frightening power and speed. Buster Douglas, by contrast, had 4 career defeats and was seen as a fringe contender at best. The odds reflected the perceived mismatch. Tyson was a 42-1 favorite. Many questioned why the fight was even happening, and the general expectation was that Tyson would dispatch Douglas quickly and move on to a much-anticipated super fight with Evander Holyfield. But circumstances behind the scenes painted a different picture. Tyson had recently parted ways with longtime trainer Kevin Rooney, and his preparation for the fight appeared lax. There were reports of chaotic training camps, poor sparring, and a lack of urgency from Tyson's camp. Douglas, on the other hand, was focused and determined, fighting with the memory of his recently deceased mother, who had passed away just 23 days before the bout. That emotional drive would prove crucial. From the opening bell, Douglas took control with a crisp and accurate jab, using his 12-inch reach advantage to keep Tyson at bay. He worked angles, showed impressive head movement, and continually peppered Tyson with combinations. Tyson struggled to close the distance and appeared flat-footed, absorbing punishment without landing his usual bombs. The turning point seemed to come in the 8th round when Tyson landed a huge right uppercut that knocked Douglas down. Controversy followed, as Tyson's team protested the referee's count, claiming it was slow. Douglas rose at 9, but by the end of the round he was back on top, landing more clean punches and keeping Tyson from building any momentum. In the 10th, Douglas delivered a picture-perfect uppercut that snapped Tyson's head back. A blistering combination followed, and Tyson crashed to the canvas for the first time in his career. In a surreal scene, he scrambled on the mat looking for his gum shield, clearly dazed. He couldn't beat the count. The referee waved it off at 1:23 of the round. Just like that, Tyson's reign was over. The result sent shockwaves through the sport and remains one of its most iconic moments. Tyson's aura of invincibility was shattered in front of a stunned global audience. Douglas, once viewed as a stepping stone, became the new undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. After nearly 5 years, Mike Tyson finally had the chance to reclaim a piece of the heavyweight crown. On 16 March 1996, he stepped into the ring with WBC champion Frank Bruno in a highly anticipated rematch at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Bruno, now 34, was coming off the proudest moment of his career, winning the WBC heavyweight title in his 4th attempt, after outpointing Oliver McCall. But defending that title against a rejuvenated Tyson was a different task altogether. The two had fought 7 years earlier, back in 1989, with Tyson winning by 5th-round stoppage. Now, with both fighters older and with their legacies on the line, the second encounter carried added weight. For Tyson, this was more than just a title fight. It was a symbolic reclaiming of his old identity as world champion. For Bruno, it was about proving that his title win wasn't just a moment in time. From the opening bell, Tyson looked sharper and far more aggressive than he had in his 1995 comeback bouts. Bruno was clearly tentative, working to survive against Tyson's swarming offense. Tyson's movement, head slips, and punching angles, hallmarks of his peak, had returned with frightening clarity. In the 3rd round, Tyson found his opening. He cornered Bruno and unleashed a vicious series of uppercuts and hooks that snapped the champion's head back. A particularly brutal left uppercut had Bruno reeling, prompting referee Mills Lane to step in and wave it off. The official time was 50 seconds into the round. With the win, Tyson became a 2-time WBC heavyweight champion. Bruno, emotional in defeat, would retire after the bout, closing the book on a proud, if often difficult, career. For Tyson, however, the title win marked a new era. He had successfully climbed the mountain once again. But even bigger challenges and deeper controversies lay just around the corner. Fight 46, 7 September 1996, Bruce Seldon. After reclaiming the WBC heavyweight title earlier in the year with a dominant win over Frank Bruno, Mike Tyson continued his march back toward undisputed status. But politics once again played a central role in shaping the path. In 1996, Lennox Lewis had been the mandatory challenger for Tyson's WBC belt. Tyson's team, however, had other plans, and so did Don King. Lewis was offered a career-high $13.5 million guarantee to face Tyson, but instead accepted $4 million from Don King to step aside and allow Tyson to pursue a bout with WBA champion Bruce Seldon. The plan was clear. Tyson would fight Seldon for another world title, and, if victorious, would then face Lewis in a massive unification showdown. With the WBC title vacated, Tyson now set his sights on the WBA belt. The bout with Bruce Seldon was booked for September 7th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Seldon had won the vacant WBA title in 1995 by stopping former champion Tony Tucker, and had one successful defense under his belt. Known for his jab and size, Seldon talked confidently in the build-up, but few gave him a serious chance against Tyson's firepower. Once the fight began, Any sense of suspense quickly vanished. Tyson came forward immediately, aggressive and intense. Just over a minute into the opening round, a glancing right hand sent Selden stumbling to the canvas. He beat the count, but Tyson closed in again and landed another short right that sent Selden down for the second time. Though he rose once more, referee Richard Steele had seen enough and stopped the bout at just 1 minute and 49 seconds of round 1, declaring Tyson the winner by TKO. The crowd erupted, this time in boos. Many were stunned by the ease with which Selden had gone down, and accusations of a dive circulated widely. Selden later insisted he was hurt and overwhelmed by Tyson's power, but fans were unconvinced. Still, the results stood. Tyson was now WBA heavyweight champion. The night, however, would be tragically remembered for more than just the fight. Mere hours after the bout, rapper Tupac Shakur was gunned down in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, following an altercation involving members of Tyson's entourage. He would die 6 days later, casting a somber shadow over the event. Tyson appeared to be on top of the boxing world, and just as planned, the next challenge was set. A long-delayed showdown with Evander Holyfield, Tyson's most skilled and accomplished opponent since his return from prison. But what followed would shock the world. Again. Fight 47, 9 November 1996, Evander Holyfield. After reclaiming the heavyweight crown with emphatic victories over Frank Bruno and Bruce Selden, Mike Tyson was once again champion and the most feared man in boxing. The long-awaited clash with Evander Holyfield, originally planned for 1991, was finally set for November 9, 1996, at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. But the timing couldn't have seemed more lopsided. Holyfield, a former undisputed cruiserweight and heavyweight champion, was widely considered washed up. Having battled heart issues and endured punishing wars throughout his career, many believed he had no business being in the ring with Tyson. In fact, the Nevada State Athletic Commission had initially denied him a license in 1994 due to health concerns, and doctors warned that another brutal fight could be life-threatening. He'd gone 2-2 in his previous 4 fights and was a massive underdog. Some bookmakers had him at 25-1. The public narrative was grim. This was less a fight and more a formality. Another name for Tyson to bulldoze on his way to a unification with Lennox Lewis. But Evander Holyfield had other plans. From the opening bell, Holyfield showed no fear. He boxed with poise and control, countering Tyson's aggression with sharp combinations and using his size and experience to tie Tyson up inside. Tyson landed several of his trademark hooks, but Holyfield absorbed them and fired back with equal, if not greater, authority. The turning point came in round 6, when Holyfield dropped Tyson with a short right hand, the first official knockdown Tyson had suffered since the Buster Douglas fight nearly 7 years earlier. Though Tyson beat the count, it was clear the aura of invincibility had shattered. Holyfield's physicality frustrated Tyson. He used head movement, clinches, and constant pressure to nullify Tyson's rhythm. Tyson, who had relied so often on early round knockouts, found himself drowning in the later rounds. His power was no longer bailing him out. In the 10th, Holyfield dominated, landing clean combinations and backing Tyson up, and in round 11, after a sustained and brutal barrage with Tyson pinned against the ropes, referee Mitch Halpern stepped in to stop the fight. Evander Holyfield had done the unthinkable. He had stopped Mike Tyson to become a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. It was one of the greatest upsets in boxing history, not because Tyson lost, but because Holyfield, a fighter many feared for his very health, had dominated. Tyson's comeback story had been upended, and questions about his vulnerability resurfaced. But for Holyfield, it was a resurrection, proof that heart, resilience, and belief could conquer even the most fearsome power. The two men would meet again 7 months later, in what would become one of the most infamous fights of all time. Fight 48, June 28, 1997. Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield 2. In what was meant to be the ultimate redemption arc for Mike Tyson, the rematch with Evander Holyfield on June 28, 1997, instead became the most infamous night of his career. and one of the darkest chapters in boxing history. Held again at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, the fight came 7 months after Holyfield shocked the world by stopping Tyson in the 11th round. The upset was so decisive, many questioned whether Tyson was still a true force in the division. For Tyson, this rematch was more than just a shot at regaining the WBA heavyweight title. It was personal. Tension simmered in the lead-up. Tyson's camp had accused Holyfield of headbutting during the first fight, claims that many dismissed as excuse-making, but Tyson remained fixated. In the pre-fight build-up, Tyson appeared erratic and emotional, while Holyfield was calm, disciplined, and brimming with confidence. At 34, Holyfield had already cemented his status as a 3-time world champion, and he approached the rematch with the mental strength and poise of a seasoned veteran. The fight began with an air of electricity, but also volatility. Holyfield established control early, much like in the first bout. He used his jab to measure Tyson, tied him up in close quarters, and frustrated him with movement. At the end of the second round, Holyfield dipped his head during an exchange, causing an accidental clash of heads that opened a cut over Tyson's right eye. Whether intentional or not, that headbutt proved to be the breaking point for Tyson. When round 3 began, Tyson came out with fury. He suddenly bit into Holyfield's right ear during a clinch, ripping off a chunk and spitting it onto the canvas. Referee Mills Lane halted the fight and chaos ensued. Holyfield leapt into the air in pain. Tyson paced the ring like a caged animal. Doctors examined the wound, and Lane deducted 2 points, but decided, under pressure from the commission in both camps, to allow the fight to continue. But only seconds later, Tyson struck again. In another clinch, he bit Holyfield's left ear. At the end of the round, Mike Tyson was disqualified, and Evander Holyfield was declared the winner via DQ in the 3rd round. The aftermath was explosive. Fans inside the MGM Grand erupted, some in outrage, others in disbelief. Tyson had gone from former champion to sporting pariah in a matter of minutes. The Nevada State Athletic Commission swiftly revoked his boxing license, issued a $3 million fine, and banned him indefinitely. The incident became global news, not just a boxing scandal, but a cultural flashpoint. Tyson's reputation, already damaged, took a further nosedive. It would be over 15 months before Tyson returned to the ring, and the bite fight permanently stained his legacy. More than just a disqualification, this bout represented the collapse of a fighter whose rage had finally consumed his discipline. Holyfield, the win was another high point in a remarkable comeback story. He had proven the doubters wrong, cemented his legacy, and retained his WBA title. For Tyson, the fallout from this fight would lead to another extended absence from boxing, and a further unraveling of the myth he had once built in the late 80s. The Tyson-Holyfield rivalry was meant to be an epic clash of champions. Instead, it ended as the sport's most shocking meltdowns. Fight 55, Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis. After years of anticipation, Mike Tyson finally faced Lennox Lewis on June 8, 2002 in Memphis, Tennessee. This fight was highly anticipated because the two had been linked since 1996, when Tyson was the reigning WBC heavyweight champion. Back then, Lennox Lewis was the mandatory challenger, but Lewis accepted a $4 million step-aside payment to allow Tyson to fight Bruce Seldon instead, delaying their showdown by 6 years. By 2002, Lewis had become the undisputed heavyweight champion, holding the WBC, IBF, and IBO belts, while Tyson was no longer the dominant force he once was, having suffered knockout losses to Buster Douglas in 1990 and Evander Holyfield twice in 1996 and 1997. Despite this, Tyson remained a huge draw, and their long-awaited fight was set to finally settle the rivalry. Due to licensing issues in Nevada, the fight was moved to Memphis. The intense build-up featured a notorious press conference brawl, where Tyson lunged at Lewis, sparking a melee between their camps. In the ring, Lewis dominated with his jab, reach, and superior boxing skill. He steadily wore Tyson down, opening a large cut over Tyson's eye and breaking his rhythm. In the 8th round, Lewis landed a powerful right hand that knocked Tyson down. Tyson was unable to beat the count, resulting in a KO loss. This fight ended Tyson's last legitimate shot at a heavyweight title and solidified Lennox Lewis's legacy as the top heavyweight of his era.